negative hashtags. And when we talk about, when we talk about negative numbers, usually we're talking about the positive and negative whole numbers. When we talk about these, we are talking about what we call integers. You hear that word integers? That's what we're talking about. Probably the best way to think about this, or the easiest way to start off with this, is to draw a number line. We start off with 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're pretty familiar with that because you've been using number lines probably since the day you were first, second, or whatever, third grade. But what you must realize is here at 0, going in this opposite direction, which are numbers we call opposites, there are an equal amount of whole numbers going to the left as there are to the right. And those are the negative numbers. And they work the same way. It goes negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, and they go on forever in the left-hand direction there. And if you think about these, you have to think a little bit deeper about negative numbers when you talk about comparing them, because if I asked you what was bigger, negative 7 compared to 0, okay, 0 is bigger than negative 7 for a couple reasons. One of them being, if you look at a number line, if you compare the number 3 to the number 6, 3 compared to 6, 6 is bigger. Any number to the right of any number is bigger than it. In other words, 1 is bigger than 0, 2 is bigger than 0, 3 is bigger than 4 is bigger than any number that falls down here because numbers get smaller and smaller as they go to the left. And a good way to think about it, negative numbers, is think about negative numbers is like money that you owe somebody. And that's kind of how they write it there. Is it better to owe somebody nothing, or is it better to owe them $7? Well, obviously you'd rather owe them nothing because then you don't owe them anything. So that really is bigger. 0 is a bigger number than any negative numbers. You know, if I compared 0 to negative 300,000, 0 is way, 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 way bigger than negative 300,000. Fantastically bigger than that. Would you rather owe somebody $3,000, or would you rather owe them nothing? Abram?
What about this in number line?
Perfect. And that's what we'll review.
Yeah.
Because today we're moving on to not only that, but we're moving on to what happens when we subtract one number from another number. Let's look at, let me go back and move some stuff around here. Let me get rid of some of this stuff. Oops. Get rid of this. I can't get it.
Oh, Mr.
Let me see this. We'll just look at a subtraction problem. What happens if I have 6 minus 3? I know you know what the answer to that is, but doing that on a number line, what happens there when you subtract numbers, I'm starting at 6, and if I subtract 3, that's like jumping to the left 3 places. 6 minus 3, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3 is 3. Well, that holds true for anything that you do. If I said 2 minus 4, if you're starting at 2 and you subtract 1, 2, 3, 4 from it, what do you end up with?
-2.
-2. Okay. Or if you have -2 and you subtract 1 from it, you're starting at -2, subtracting 1 means you go to the left, you end up with a -3. I don't know if they give you any of those. What would 1 minus 5 be? Well, if you start at 1, maybe I'll change colors. if I start at 1 and subtract 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1 minus 5 is -4. Now it's interesting to note, and here's something, here you'll catch on to this little thing here. See if you pick up on this. What is 6 minus 3?
3.
3. What is 3 minus 6?
Negative 3.
So if I have 8 minus 2
6.
is 6, 2 minus 8,
Negative 6.
-6. In the end, when you have these, in each case you actually subtract. It's just that when you subtract a bigger number from a smaller one, it becomes its negative. Okay, so you could tell me the answer to this. What is 100 minus 300? Tyler?
200.
Negative 200. Just like 300 minus 100 is a regular 200, 100 minus 300 is the opposite or backwards of that. And these are opposites. When they ask about opposites, that just means if it's negative, the opposite of 4 is -4, and the opposite of -8 is 8. So if they ever asked you, if you add a number and its opposite together, what will you always get? A number added to its opposite will always give you, card rate, 0. Equals 0. Because if you take 4 and subtract 4 from it, you're going to end up at 0. If you take -8 and add 8 to it, you're going to end up with 0. Anytime you put a number with its opposite, you will always get 0. And be very careful. Here's a couple questions they might ask you. What is 8 less than 10? What is 8 less than 10? If I asked you that question, what would you tell me? What is 8 less than 10? Abram?
I would have said 2.
Is it 2?
It's -2.
No, you were right. It was 2.
Oh.
Again, you have to watch how it's worded. 8 less than 10. That means you're starting with taking 10 and you're subtracting 8. It is 2. If I asked you what is 10 less than 8, that means you're taking 8 and subtracting 10 from it. You have to be careful when they write it out in words that you're putting it. It's not necessarily in the order it's given. You have to read the words and see what they mean. 8 minus 10, 8 less than 10. Just like this. What's 15 your age? What is 15 less than your age?
-5. I was -4.
Are you like 10?
-3.
You're like 10?
11.
I'm 11. -3 or -4 probably would be the majority of it there. The other thing they talk about this is this. If you're talking about what are some things we use negative integers for, well, one place you see is temperature. You have a thermometer, at 0 degrees. Weather can get colder than 0 degrees, especially Fahrenheit. We use negative integers there. Another thing we use is when we talk about things being above or below sea level. Water is at a certain level. Okay, mountains are above sea level, but the bottom of the ocean floor, is below sea level. So sea level we call 0. Sea level is kind of our 0 level. It's at 0 feet. If you go down here, you might be 100 minus 100 feet. That's below sea level. A mountain might be 2,000 feet above sea level. But when you go below that line, it's a negative integer. When you go above that sea level line, it's a positive integer.
Are we gonna learn how to do like 362 minus like 573 or something like
We
that?
already know how to do that, we just talked about that.
I don't understand how to do that.
Wait, give me the problem.
362 minus 573.
Okay, here's what I want you to think about. How did we do this? How did we do 10 minus 8 and 8 minus 10? Well, 8 minus 10 was 2, and 10 minus 8 was 2, and 8 minus 10 was.
Negative two. Switch the.
So what did you do in both cases? You actually subtracted the number, the same thing both times. So you would still take 5, because you know that you're subtracting a bigger number, your answer is going to be negative. You still subtract just like you normally do. You're going to get 211,
Negative.
but because it is one bigger than another, it's negative 211.
Thank you.
So you will get that, yes.
Interesting.
Isn't that exciting?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.